So today I am joined by John Newton, and we are going to try to corrupt the Bible. So thank you guys for joining us.
Just a minute here. This was your idea.
Oh, it's totally my idea.
I did not want to. I am not going to corrupt the Bible.
I'm just talking about exploring the concept of this accusation that many Muslims have that the Bible has been corrupted.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I thought
Getting us in trouble already.
Yeah.
Let's go for that blasphemy.
Okay. All right. This is going to be different.
You guys know me. I don't shy away from the harder topics. So, but this is one that comes up a lot when talking to Muslims, that the Bible has been corrupted. So we're going to dive through. We'll look at some dates, go back through, see when this might have possibly happened, we're going to explore the concept of if I wanted to, at that time, try to corrupt the Bible, what would have taken, and could I have feasibly done it? So let's start off with the easy date of, well, now. Let's start off with now. Okay.
What do you mean by now? What are you going to do? Are you going to try to corrupt?
I want to corrupt the Bible right now.
Right.
If I were just to sit down today, hold a Bible in my hand and say, I am going to corrupt this.
Okay, so what do you mean? Let's start with definitions. What do you mean by corrupted? You can take it and dump it in some, I don't know, broken eggs or something like that to get all the pages all nasty inside and stuff? Or
no, I think it would be, let's just do a simple one. Let's just do a simple change. Even theologically, this wouldn't matter much. Let's just change one person's name in the Bible and see if we can get away with that and everyone accept it, as the Muslims have said Christians have done.
Okay, so you want to change something in the Bible.
One person's name.
And you're going to make everybody believe
that's always been that way.
It's okay.
It's always been that way. That's how it is.
Good luck with that.
Well, we're exploring this concept.
Okay.
That is the accusation. I'm not saying it's logical.
You come over. Hey, we're going to corrupt the Bible. You want to come over? Okay. I thought this was going to be an intervention. I thought I was going to have to wrestle you down. What am I going to do with all this duct tape? Okay, never mind. Go ahead. You're going to corrupt it by changing. You brought your own.
I always have duct tape. Duct tape is extremely
Was that for
handy.
me?
Only an occasional guess.
If I say something wrong, you're going to duct tape my mouth. Okay, so you're going to change one person's name. The Bible. All right, who are you going to change?
You know what? Let's do a prominent person, but not one that their name, really theologically matters. So let's go ahead and pick, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Let's just change her name to Kim. So we're not going to change anything else. We're just going to change her name, edit it out, and put Kim in all those places. Just, pull up Word and do a find and replace.
Okay.
So I go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and do that to my Bible. I'll do that to all the digital copies I have. I'd go ahead and just do that willy-nilly. Well, the issue I have with that is, sure, all my Bibles now say that Jesus' mother was Kim. But that's it. Now I have to convince everyone else that this is the authentic Bible that's always been this way. I can't really do that with all the other copies of the Bible we have.
What do you mean the other Bible? What other copies?
There are so many other Bibles that are out there that I haven't
in the
altered.
whole world?
Yes. I haven't altered yet. That leads me to a bit of an issue.
If you did this in North Korea, you want to change it to Kim Jong-un, then probably you get his support behind it. But everybody outside of North Korea is probably going to be against it.
Kim Jong-un, the mother of Jesus. That would be interesting. I just got banned in North Korea. Oh, well, North Korea doesn't have YouTube anyway, so I'm good.
I don't know. Maybe you're going to get a whole bunch of subscribers for doing that.
King Jong-un's going to promote my
That's
channel.
right.
Let's go do
That's
this.
right. I wouldn't suggest that, though. It's not one good to add to your subscription list.
So I think one of the major problems that we'd have is there's just so many in this digital age. It's so easy to cross-reference and to see when something has been altered or changed. It's easy. I mean, it could take 5 seconds on the internet. Boom. Oh, well, this is the differences between these two. And wow, this person just threw this into the Bible. That's obviously wrong. That's obviously altered for these reasons. So that wouldn't make any sense at all.
Well, it wouldn't work.
It wouldn't
you
work.
wouldn't be
It'd
able
fall
to.
apart.
It would. It would. Then people just look at you and say, "Okay, what are you doing?"
You're nuts.
And they have something to compare it to. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Well,
reasonable.
You know what? Let's step back in time. Maybe now you couldn't do it, but maybe sometime in the past you could have. Let's go back to 1776. That is the founding of the United States. Let's say, okay, so we don't have as many copies of the Bible that are out there, so we wouldn't have to change that many. Just there's still a lot. Not the same number. I mean, you don't have the digital age. They wouldn't be able to easily cross-reference.
Not digital, but they had something else.
Hold on, what was that?
You know what it is? A printing press.
Yeah, printing press. So
Right.
mass production of the Bible. The Bible's already been mass produced.
Okay. So you go in there and you can change the words. Oh, the printing press. You go into sneak into Philadelphia in their printer,
And I
Right.
alter the words.
and you alter the words there.
there.
Kim. You put Kim in, and you have to
Kim.
do several places. but
It's
you,
Kim Jong-un is the mother.
You're going there. You're
I'm
going.
going
North,
all out.
You're going to North Korea.
Hey, if
on this
I am
one.
going, I'm going to do the entire thing. Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm
Go
going
for
to
that
make those
sponsorship. We'll
alterations.
see what happens. So
So I make that alteration to the Bible, produce it, mass production. You know what? I'm even able, since I own this, say I own the printing press, I'm able to do this. I'm able to mass produce it and just sell it all over the United States. And say, even if I succeeded and it gets to every part of the United States,
it's not going to work.
it still won't work. It
Yeah.
still fall apart. Actually, for the same reasons. Because
Well, I would say even more so back then, because we have multiple modern versions now, but they pretty much just the English version. There's more than one, but the main English version they used was the King James version.
and the King James version was in wide use. Okay, well, you know what? Fine. King James version is being a pain in my rear end. Let's go ahead and step on back to when the King James version was being put together. Now, when I was doing research, it was massively confusing. Why did they name the king twice?
What do you mean name the king twice?
He was the king of Scotland, King James II, and he was King James III of England.
You just happen to have those different
I
titles.
thought it was two different kings.
No.
It took me a while to realize, oh, no, he just happened to have the same name both spots.
Okay. And we won't go into the reasons of why King James decided that then was a good time to have an English version of the Bible, but he did. And we're talking what year now? 1611, right? Is when they
1611 is when they mass produced it. It was published
right.
in 1611. But I want to go back to when they just started putting
Okay.
it together.
They're
That was
pulling-
1604.
King James is pulling all these people together, these translators and stuff, and he's going to set that into work.
You know what? I'm going to take the position of King James. Could I, at that point, have made this alteration, making Kim the...
See, you lost me on that right there. Why would the King of England want to have a treaty with North Korea? He didn't even know North Korea didn't even exist back then. So okay, so he
Just follow the balancing
Okay.
ball.
I'll go with you on this. Is just hypothetical, right?
Hypothetical. This is entirely hypothetical.
You're not going to
just
time travel
explore
and try to do this right now, right?
it. No, so far it's a waste of time.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Literally, in both regards.
Okay, so before they do the King James Bible, you're going to go back. You're going to be King James himself,
And I'm going to order that they change it.
Okay, I think you're going to have a little bit of rebellion on your hand, but let's say that they go ahead and do that
Yeah, because you got a bunch of monks who are doing this. I'm not necessarily doing this alteration myself. So they are the ones who are doing it, and they have to believe in it. And I'd have to convince all the people who are writing it that this is actually the way it's supposed to be, not the way it was originally written.
right.
So that wouldn't really work. Even if you could convince everyone there, then you're dealing with a mass conspiracy.
Okay, so let me just make the assumption that somebody listening to this might not understand. Let's say that they really don't understand where the Bible origins, where the Bible really came from. So they're thinking that you got a bunch of monks in the Middle Ages that are just saying like, "Oh, let's do this. Let's put this person in." And they just make it from scratch, right? This is not the case. They're not a bunch of monks in the Middle Ages just to figuring out some things to put in a book, and that's what ends up coming out. This is from ancient texts, and they are translating the Bible, correct?
Yes. So they have the original manuscripts there. They're translating it into whichever language they're translating it into. They're not taking a copy of a copy of a copy, mind you. They are taking transcripts from the originals to this new language, English.
Okay. So King James does that, or your brother in Christ does this.
Your brother in Christ does this.
All right.
Decrees it. Doesn't work because the monks don't want to do it.
Okay.
Because it's obvious.
Well, you burn them at the stake because this is the Anglican Church, and you're the head of the church, so you can go ahead and do that and say, well, no, they actually did do that, but let's say you threaten everybody, and to do that.
Let's say
you force them to do it.
Even hypothetically. So we do actually force them to do it. They're producing these. This is the King James version of Your Brother in Christ. It's got Kim in there as the mother of Jesus. The Catholic Church.
What about them?
They have copies too.
Oops.
They have a lot more copies.
Oops.
So even though now there are a lot of King James Bibles going around, back then we would have to go back even further in time in order to try.
Before you do, let me say something in there before we go back in time. So I don't want to jump back in time just yet. One of the main reasons why there would be a problem, because when they published that in 1611, it's not like a bunch of English and Scots and Irish were sitting around thinking, oh, I wish I really had a copy of the Bible. In your own language, they already did have it in English language, by the way. There was another version around at the time. But they mostly used the Latin Vulgate. So this is the Bible written in Latin, and they could just put the two up and say, Kim, Mary, I think you guys made a mistake. So they can compare.
Darn intelligence.
Right.
You know, if people were just stupider, this would be so much easier. And at this time, again, the printing press was in production. So they're using the printing press at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Well, since the printing press has been such a thorn in our side, let's see if we step back to the printing press. So this is when the 1500s was when it became in mass use. So this is the first time it's been mass use.
Okay.
So let's say that even if I owned one printing press, we'd run into the same issue that we ran into before. That, oh shoot, they can just compare it to what was previous.
Right.
Okay, well, you know what? The Pope had the authority. He was in charge. So we go back to the popes. What about any of the popes? Could the popes have done it? Could the popes have made the alteration to the Bible itself?
No. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to get away with it.
I mean, they could have theoretically, but why wouldn't they have been able to get away with it?
Okay, so you're talking about making a change. Now we're at the Latin Vulgate.
Yes.
Making a change to Latin Vulgate. So first of all, the Latin Vulgate's been around for a while. And number two, even though we're talking about the Catholic Church, this is before the Protestant Reformation. So the West has basically one monolithic, as long as you don't consider all the heresies, one monolithic group. But the popes would say, I therefore decree Mary shall henceforth be named Kim Jong-un. That's not going to work. Because that is not the only group of people that are carrying around Bibles. You also have Eastern Orthodox. You got the Coptic Church. You got different groups that also have a copy of it. So it doesn't matter what the Pope's going to do. It's just going to be it would be for the West, and they would say, okay, maybe we'll start calling her Kim. But everybody would be able to point when Pope Gregory III said, henceforth known as Kim Jong-un.
So you would easily be able to detect that discrepancy.
Oh, yeah.
Between the two, and it would not be seamlessly slipped in as the Muslims claim.
No.
Okay, fine. We keep going back. We keep stepping back. We're going to run out of time. It's odd talking about that as we're just traveling back through time.
You better hurry on your traveling back. What else we got?
Okay. So since it's the Muslims that are making this claim, and the reason is because in the Quran it says that it comes and delivers the same message that the Bible and the Torah have delivered. And that's why Muslims now say that the Bible has been corrupted, because originally it was in line with Muhammad's teachings. And since, we have eyeballs and we can tell the difference between them. What about right after Muhammad's death?
Okay.
Could that have been the time that it would have been corrupted? Could we have
done it back then?
Could it have been done in a way that would be seamless?
So you're now talking about a very narrow sliver of time. We know that all these other eras that we looked at, it really wouldn't have been feasible. So if we go back, it has to start when the Muslim, because did Muhammad say it was corrupted?
Muhammad never said it was corrupted himself. It wasn't until afterwards. Now, the Quran does not say that it was corrupted. The Quran does say that some Jews used words that twisted the meaning of the Quran.
Okay.
But it never says that the Bible itself, the text in the Bible and the Torah, were corrupted. There's no place in the Quran that says that.
Where is that? Is that a hadith or something? Where does that come from?
Not even the hadith.
Really?
You're, again, looking at later...
Didn't Muhammad say have them go back to their scriptures and basically approve me? So
yes,
isn't
they
he basically
did. That's what
saying
the
that
issue
the
is.
scriptures are reliable?
Yes, that's what the issue is.
Okay, so if we say that during Muhammad's time, the New Testament and Old Testament were reliable, according to
the Quran, yes.
Then maybe sometime after that, it had done. So now we got a starting point, Muhammad's death. Sometime after that.
Eventually.
Okay, so 636.
636, the death of Muhammad.
It says it right there. 636.
Yes, right there.
All right.
That is our starting period. Death of Muhammad. So could it have been done? We don't have the printing press.
No. Okay, so now we're back in the era of manuscripts.
Yes, we are. This is
and the Latin Vulgate, I believe, was I'm pretty sure it was written back then. I need to look at the date on that, but I'm pretty sure the Latin Vulgate was around during that time. But even if it wasn't, before they had the Latin Vulgate, they had something else they went by.
Oh, and what is that?
The Greek New Testament. So
they had another one. They already had a book put together.
Yes, I don't know about book form, but yes, they did have. So they had the canon when the New Testament was canonized. It was well before 600. So when the New Testament was canonized, all the scriptures were brought together. All the letters from Paul, all the Gospels, the Book of Acts, Revelation, and the other epistles. When they were all put together and canonized, you had an actual cohesive scripture at that point. And there was great debate. What should be in there? What shouldn't? The book of Hebrews are wondering, should it be in there? Because we don't know who actually wrote Hebrews, because everything that was written in the New Testament, one of the rules was it should have been written by an apostle. I don't know who wrote it. Some speculate Paul, but don't really know. But anyway, it was all there at that time. And people had copies in the Greek, and then it went to the Latin after that.
And little known secret, at the time during Muhammad's lifetime, there was already the Gospels in Aramaic.
Aramaic or Arabic?
Arabic. It was already there.
Okay. Copies
could have been read, but as it has been widely stated over and over again, Muhammad couldn't read.
Okay. So yeah, there's no and And then we can get into the whole question of textual criticism. I'm betting we don't have time for that. But basically the idea is, should I say anything about it at all? Or are we doing
You go ahead. Go ahead.
So
it's easy going. This one's not one that I'm doing time limits on. We'll just jump back as we can.
So the idea of textual criticism is you're looking back at the what they call the original manuscripts. These are not the actual paper that the apostles wrote down, but these are early copies of, because we don't have the original copies that the apostles wrote down, but we do have early copies that go back very far. And this is just the New Testament. We're talking about the Old Testament. You have the Septuagint that was completely finished and written before the time of Christ. You also have the Dead Sea Scrolls and other texts that you can go back to. And we can talk about textual criticism for the Old Testament, but at the very least, the New Testament complete, finished, and there are notes on the bottom of this book. This is the Nestle Allen, which version? Greek New Testament, third edition. So this is just a print edition. That's the only difference. But there are points down the bottom where they say this textual variant differed from, this is Textus Sinaiticus. It differed from Vaticanus on this part, and there's nothing of theological difference, significance in any of the text original manuscripts that they had. They were copy errors, and that's the other thing too that you can say, that if you were before we can get back to Muhammad, let's just take this for a second. If you were able to get away with, like let's go back to the King James Bible. If you, O King, brother of Christ, were able to command, therefore I saith to you, don't useth the name of Mary, but useth the name of Kim Il Jungeth, whatever. Use him instead. Use that name instead. If you were able to get away from that, every other text that would be translated from the English, by the way, it wasn't, but it was translated from the English, everybody who wrote that down then, when they copy it down from your version, they're going to have that error. Mm-hmm. So with textual variants, you can go back and trace back where the errors originated from. And I would get caught. And you would get caught. And these are, by and large, textual variants, like somebody forgot a letter, they a word was misspelled or something, and you can see where that came down and stuff like that. And that's on the textual part. So the very fact that there is a science, it's an archaeological science, a textual criticism for the New Testament, tells you that we've really taken a close look at this and know there hasn't been changes like this, what they're saying. Again, in order for it to fit what the Muslims are saying, we would have to be unaware of it. We would have to have not known about it until the Muslims decided to start telling us about it. So that kind of completely defeats that concept. So even if we stepped back further in time, and we'll jump now back to 1325, 325, if you're aware of why I did that. That was Emperor Constantine and the First Council of Nicaea. So this is... Why is that? Why there? Why there? Seems like a rather pretty important time. This is when Rome took Christianity as their actual state religion. Mm-hmm. And they put the Bible together as far as gathering up the letters and put them together. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Yes. Could we at that point have infiltrated and corrupted it? Again, this ends up being, and this is the biggest issue with this, no matter who I am who's trying to make Mary into Kim, I have to convince everyone else. Yeah. And the larger a conspiracy is, the more likely it is to fall apart. Yeah, we're talking about a huge conspiracy. Yeah, and this is a name that was already well known and everything at that point. So you wouldn't be able to get away with this. No. Yeah. No. Somebody just texted me and they said no.
I guess so. Giving us any updates.
It was Kim El Jong.
Ooh, I'm kind of scared to answer that number now. Okay. That phone goes in the trash.
Report to me now.
Oh, boy. They know what we're trying to do.
Take back my sponsorship. I did not know I'd be a woman.
Oh, you never read the Bible, so I was hoping to slip that one in. Okay, well, say the
It's not going to work.
So, yeah, so even then, we still have manuscripts from before that, right, though?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd still be able to do the same investigation and see, oh, shoot, at this point, they changed these.
Here's another thing, too. You're talking about there were other letters and other literature outside the Bible that make mention of aspects of the Bible. Josephus, for example, who was the Jewish historian, talked about the death of Christ. I talked about the resurrection. I have to look at that. But there's other things that corroborate outside the Bible that talk about it. So you've got to be careful that to say, oh, Jesus didn't die, blah, blah, blah.
No, there's Roman governors who wrote about it, what the Christians believe, that they believe in this triune God, that they believe that Jesus died and rose again. That was from the 1st century.
So let's say they're going to do this cover up. You'd have to go the further forward in time, the more you're going to have to try to cover up. And it's not just I'm going to go in here and I'm going to scribble something in a book and change it. That's not going to work.
This is a lot harder than what the Muslims made it sound like. The Muslims made it sound like you just changed. I
don't think you're going to get your sponsorship.
I know. I'm missing out on all the bucks.
It's a shame.
Oh, what a shame.
Was he going to give you a gift certificate to Longhorn or something? Was that?
Oh, expense paid trip to there.
Yeah. We got a place for you here.
We got a place for you. Yeah.
Get 3 hots in a cot. Yeah. Okay. That'll work.
Okay. So let's go back to the most pointed to character that they say corrupted it.
Mary's mother. She named her. That'll be it. You change it there, everything else goes. Is that where you headed?
As easy as that actually would be, but unfortunately at that point, then it would have been true to begin with. So we wouldn't really be corrupting anything.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So that would kind of defeat the point. No, the Apostle Paul. That's what's
what does he have anything to do with?
A lot of Muslims point to him and saying that he corrupted the original apostles' message.
You mean like them. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Yes, those people.
He had like a little spat with Peter. I don't think that would work. They'd say, yeah, come over here and change everything. No. And okay, so Matthew would have changed because would Paul come over and knock on his door and say, can you change some things for me? Well, how did you do this?
The issue is Matthew's letter was in circulation.
Right.
It was out there being copied and being transmitted to the other churches.
That's why he went on the missionary journey. He wasn't really talking to the Gentiles, going over there and trying to get Matthew's.
Trying to hunt down all of Matthew's letters.
Yeah, that would make sense.
There you go. So that's how he did it. And it's a miracle that he didn't miss a single one.
He was good.
He was very good. You'd almost have to be God level.
Well, then he's got Mark too.
Got Mark too.
So he has
go back through and do that.
Oh, that was his second missionary journey.
Yeah, there you go. So third
missionary journey, he was Luke. He traveled with Luke.
Yeah, so
there you go.
Why didn't Luke help him then?
Well, he had to go back. He said, hey, dude, you're doing this all wrong. We got to get rid of this. Because it was after he was done traveling with him. He wrote to Theodosius. So it must have been going back to Luke. I mean, you couldn't call him on his cell phone. They didn't have cell phones.
That's true. What?
So his fourth missionary journey, he went, oh, no. He died. Okay. So he corrupted everybody but John, right?
Well, why wouldn't he have corrupted John as well?
He was dead.
He was dead by the time John got out. And John's gospel is by far one is in line with all the others.
In the beginning, I was with the Word, and the Word was with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, yeah, that would have been one to change.
And the problem is, even the Muslims call Jesus the word of Allah.
Okay, there you go.
So
We're done.
Whoops.
Can I go now?
We're getting pretty close because there's just no way digging
Okay.
a hole here.
So
And then on top of that, even if he were to have gone through and altered all of these letters and silenced everyone who actually read the original, he would still have an issue because the original authors are still alive.
yeah, okay. So just so everybody knows, I am not saying that Paul did these missionary journeys to go back and try to change somebody's manuscripts. No, that's not what happened. It was kind of a joke, but not very funny. Okay.
What I'm saying is, even if we went with that, you would still have the massive issue that all it would have taken from Matthew or Mark or Luke is just to rewrite it and send it back out again. And then Paul would have had to start all over again.
Yeah, not only that, but that if something like that actually happened, it would have been a massive heresy and there would have been a lot of fighting. And Paul would have written about it in his letters that these guys are corrupt, they're doing this, and this is really what happened, and all that kind of stuff.
And we see none of that in any of the letters.
No, the only spat that he had with Peter was Peter was with some Gentiles. Some of his Jewish friends came, and Peter says basically, "Oh, I don't want to have anything to do with these guys because I'm Jewish." And Paul put him on there. He says, "What are you doing here?" That was the only thing that was going on. It wasn't anything theologically. It was more of a practice of Christianity that he put him against the wall about.
So that fell apart.
I didn't do it.
What?
Well, you got all the dates. Every time you put the date down, then you got that down there. Now it's like, oh, we're going to your brother in Christ and John Newton did. They're the ones who did it. No.
No, I just put our names back down there.
Okay. So
remove the date.
Okay.
Okay, so no, the Apostle Paul could not have done it. On top of that, you would have to answer the massive, huge issue of why. Why would he have done this and then died for it? Would have been quite bad.
Sorry, I was reading something.
Okay,
no idea
so
what
we
that's
got the
saying.
small text here of your guys' comments.
Just reading that comment. What in the world is that comment saying?
Which one? This one?
Rick, soldier of God.
Okay, I think he's replying to this comment here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Bible isn't corrupt. Well, we just explained how it could not possibly be corrupted because you'd have to fill in why. And the issue with that, now there is one other claim that we haven't really explored. And this one is becoming more popular, although I find it to be the weakest argument.
Mhm.
And I think we've already, in a way, defeated it, is the accusation that as they have translated the Bible and mass-produced it, they have copy errors because they're just copying the last one over and over
But
and
that's
over
not.
again.
That's not okay. Do you want me to address that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we kind of brought this up earlier. You can have transcription errors when there is a copy made and stuff like that. That would have happened in the earlier manuscripts, and we do see textual variants with this. Of you were actually getting a letter or a piece of paper from somebody and hand copying it down, and just any kind of human error in then that transcription could happen, and that goes to somebody else. That transcription error can then propagate. That part could and did happen, but then what we do is we take all these manuscripts together. We can date them to say which ones were written earlier and stuff like that, and then compare and to say, oh, it looks like this was there was some little variant here. But what I said earlier was that there is nothing of theological foundation for the Christian faith that this changes at all. There's nothing in any of those textual variants, and there's very few that are there, but they do exist. If anything, like I said, you can do a forensic study and kind of give it your best guess on how these came about. And with that, you can say, no, there was nobody going in there and adding like a major theological issue like Jesus dying on the cross. Somebody didn't go in there and erase that or make it something else.
So I'm going to go ahead and open this up to Q&A. If you guys have questions, go ahead and put it in there. But I think we've hit every point. In fact, we've already hit this point here, which is saying that if a pope did it, well, the issue is we already showed that that would have been...
Yeah, it would have been too late.
It would have been too late. It could not have done it without us clearly seeing the evidence. Because we have, again, the manuscripts going all the way back, and we would be able to very easily cross-reference those pretty simply.
Yeah, the further you get in time, the more texts are out there, more Bibles are out there that someone can say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. You guys made a change. It's pretty obvious.
True. You would almost have to have, this is what you would have to have had happen in the Bible's history. Right when the Bible has been, when the manuscripts are out there and you're putting them together, it would have had to have happened pretty close to the beginning because you don't have as many copies out there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe within, let's say, 18 years would be a good time frame. As long as the Bible didn't go very far. And unfortunately, for anyone that's trying to argue that the Bible has been corrupted, those went very quickly, very far out there.
Yeah. So an example would be like one of Paul's epistles that he would write it to a particular church. Let's say he's writing it to the Church of Corinth. Well, they would then transfer, hey, here's some good information. They would hand that a copy of that off to other churches, and then it would just propagate through like that. And that's actually what happened. So you would have already a foundation of comparison to make at that point.
So you would have to almost, as soon as that letter is written, you would have to be handed off to someone in order to keep it and evaluate it with all the other letters in order to have this corruption level.
Mm-hmm.
So now, granted, if there was a time period that, say, someone was able to collect all those manuscripts,
mm-hmm.
put them all together, produce what they called the Bible
mm-hmm.
or the book,
mm-hmm.
and then put that out and burned all the other ones. So we have no other of the
You'd
original
have to have
manuscripts.
authority. You'd have to have a church authority come by and say, hand me all your Bibles.
So you'd have to have an extreme religious authority in order
Right.
to do that.
Right.
As well as a governmental authority.
Yeah, and
you have to have the government to make sure that these things can be turned over.
Okay, so
right?
the only point where that would have been the case would have been with Constantine saying, now Christianity is the religion of Rome. We want everybody to turn in their manuscripts. We're going to make sure that we have a clean copy that everybody can work with. Turn everything in. We're going to burn them. That would have been the only, any time before that, they wouldn't have been able to.
But even
do
then,
this.
even if it would have happened at that time, they were just...
It would have been recorded.
It would have been recorded. We would have plenty of evidence of it. And it would have been, even with the power of Rome behind him, that would still take a lot. That'd take a lot more than even Rome had at the time. Because you'd have manuscripts that were beyond Rome, that were taken beyond that point.
Yeah.
So you couldn't guarantee that there would not be an obvious corruption.
Right.
And you know what? There is a book that happened with, that there was a religious authority who had complete control over it, was able to gather up all the copies that he could. He missed some, but were able to gather up as much as possible and burn them. That happened with the Quran with Uthman.
Wow.
So the only time that a religious book like that would have been corrupted, we could very easily see at least one point very early in Islamic history that the Quran could have been very easily corrupted. In fact, it was by the testimony of Umbai, which Umbai is considered by Muhammad, given the title as best reciter and one of the top 4 teachers of the Quran. So that would almost be like Constantine, if he would have been around at the very beginning of Christianity, gathering up all the Bibles, producing his official Bible. He's actually had multiple Qurans at the time, producing his official Bible, burning all the other evidence, and then let's say the Apostle John looks at him and says, hey, this is corrupt. That would be a huge, huge issue for Christians.
I think they did giveaways by burning them. I mean, with what happened in Nicaea, they were just giving an official stamp of approval to it. It wasn't that they were getting rid of the other copies that were around.
So no, you still have the other
you
copies.
Could take a look at the new one that they put out and then the one that you have and say, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, it says the same thing. You'd be fine.
And we can still do that today, right?
Yeah.
So pretty easily, actually. Now that we have the internet, we have the ability to Google things and be able to pull up some of these old records in museums.
Yeah, you can even look at, we talk about the Old Testament real quick, the Dead Sea Scrolls, to say, and we didn't know they were there, right? Until the last century, and say, oh, wow, these are there. And there's some nail biting going on. Say, what if it says something different? But it didn't. It corroborated with the existing text.
And in that, wasn't there a prophecy of Jesus in that? In the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves?
Yeah.
So that was, but the Dead
More than just one. I mean, you had the book of Isaiah that was in there. And there was many messianic prophecies.
And according to what we've been able to find out, those were buried a long time before Jesus came around.
Oh, yeah. By the Essenes, may have been the same group of people that John the Baptist was associated with much later.
So we have an easy, quick reference.
Do you have another chat you want to take a look at?
Which one here? Because there's been, there's the one Muslim in the chat.
There's a lot of activity going on.
Yeah, mostly they're just replying to the questions, I would call them. Did Jesus write the New Testament?
No.
Did Muhammad write the Quran?
Did Jesus write the New Testament? No. It was inspired by the Holy Spirit, who was God. So,
is the Old Testament corrupt? No. We already went through that.
So
actually, with Dead Sea Scrolls, we just touched on that.
So we really didn't touch a whole lot on the. So I guess at the very beginning too, you need to define what you mean by corrupt, because we were joking around talking about if you dropped a Bible into, some paint or something like that, is it corrupted? We're not talking about that. We're talking about somebody making a change, and more specifically, a change that with the intent of changing its meaning. So I'm going in there, I'm going to change something because I want it to say something different than what it is. Not like, oops, I forgot a comma or something like that. But I'm going to go in there and try to corrupt it in that way. So the Old Testament, I would almost put that on a different. If we're going to do textual criticism,
that is quite large. There's a lot. Again, it's almost laughable to try to compare the Bible to the Quran, because the Quran is one book. And the Bible is
66 books, 40 different authors over many continents, and 3 continents, I think, at least. And
they're not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah. So with I just say this real quick. We mentioned it earlier. The textual criticism for the Old Testament, you can look at least 2 things. One is the Dead Sea Scrolls. The other thing you can look at too is the Septuagint, which was a copy of the Old Testament translated into Greek vernacular, so that it would be Greek at that time was the common language. It was the lingua franca of the Greek Empire or the Roman Empire. You might think that, well, that's Latin. No, that was the official language that they would use for court and everything like that. But the language that most people spoke was Greek, and that was because of Alexander the Great doing what he did. So that's it. The Old Testament, the Torah, the prophets, history books, they were translated into Greek so that people at that time could easily read it. And that was before Jesus' time. So, and before the New Testament was written. So we have at least, and there's many other external references that you can use for the Old Testament being there and stuff like that. So we know it existed. We have the Greek that we can compare to the Hebrew. I didn't bring my Hebrew Bible. I could have brought my Hebrew Bible too. But you can compare the two and say, okay, is there differences here? And then we can go the whole question of textual criticism with the Old Testament.
And that is another video for another time, because that would dive into it, and I don't have any of that prepped.
No.
I only had the New Testament prepped.
And I don't know if that's what your ministry is either, to talk about that.
I've talked about it beforehand.
Okay.
Some of it. I think the major issue to take from this for Muslims is there's no point that the Bible could have been corrupted before Muhammad or even after Muhammad came.
I got one
really
question
not.
for you. I know you're starting to wrap it up, but I do have one question for
Sure.
you, and that is when they speak about corruption. Like again, we're not talking about spilling some paint on it. We're talking about something specific.
We're talking about altering the fundamentals of Christian belief to align it with what the Quran says.
So the idea that Jesus said and preached basically what was written in the Quran, that was his message, the message from Allah that they would have said, right?
Yes.
That Jesus is speaking. So he would have been basically the Quran itself was what he was doing.
Yes.
So how much does the Quran, verse by verse, differ from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
All of it. There is
So we're not talking
basically
about
no
like the
similarities.
textual variants that we have that
No,
are here.
there's
with the different
not a period moved or maybe a misspelling. No, we're talking about massive changes. I know in this video I picked just a small little change. That was just mainly just show how impossible it would be to do this massive alteration
Mhm.
that Muslims are claiming. There's no way that could have been done.
No, not at all.
But then again, at the time, there still could have been a period that the Quran could have been corrupted. And again, according to the best teacher of the Quran and the best reciter of the Quran, it was corrupted. Umbai's Quran was corrupted.
And the question again is, by how much? What are we talking about? Was it the message completely different? Were there some major changes? Were there some misspellings?
According to Umbai, there were massive sections that were just completely left out. Massive commandments that were completely left off. Not to mention the manuscripts eaten by goats.
How?
Part of the Quran was eaten by a goat.
Oops.
Yeah, but Allah protects it.
Okay.
Except he couldn't protect it from a goat.
Must be one special goat.
So, okay. And do you see any of these questions here? I know the Muslims question we kept taking over and over again. So I'm not sure which ones are necessary questions asked to us. If you guys are asking a question of us, please put at your brother in Christ in front of it.
Well, here's
we'll be aware.
one right here. It says,
Have I read the Quran? Yes, I have. If you've seen my channel at all, you know I've had to have.
Okay.
Because I go through it a lot.
I think that's a good question. I think that's, if you're going to speak about it, you should be more than just familiar. You should have read it. So I think it's a good question.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. It is hard to read because it's very disjointed. It's not like the Bible, which is chronologically ordered and a complete narrative from beginning to end.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting too. A lot of people would think that there's a direct parallel between even like the New Testament and the Quran, and it's a completely different form of literature. In fact, the New Testament itself has at least 4 different types there are 4 different literary types. You have historical, just like in the Old Testament, you have historical. Then you have the epistles, historical: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts. The epistles, letters written by people. You have apocryphal, which would have been the book of Revelation, and you could see parallels with that with the Old Testament. That there you have poetry in the Old Testament. You have historical books. You have the law, which would have been disseminated out. I think with the Quran, it's more like I'm telling you this I'm giving you the law. Right, more transmitted,
yes.
more of that literary form, and then examples of things that were
commands
taken from
and
it.
yeah, These are
commands
who
and
you should
examples.
be looking at. This is one of the common things that we've run into with Muslims is they'll look at characters in the Bible and say, well, see, you've got like Prophet Lot and look at all the bad stuff that he's done. And you're supposed to be like him. And it's like, no, that's not what it is. But that comes from that misunderstanding that it's not, the historical accounts aren't saying, hey, all these people that we're telling you these stories of, you need to be exactly like.
Right.
So that is just not.
There's another one. At your brother. There's a bunch of them that are coming up now.
That's nice. Whatever the Hebrew question was, please repost that because I have no clue how long ago it has been buried.
Sorry, we should almost have somebody monitor that to see the questions.
Well, I should have been double checking both. So we do have.
That's me, I think. No.
Please silence all phones. This is mine.
Just
over here.
vibration.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, what do Muslims claim is corrupted? Basically, it has to be the entire thing because Allah does not have a son. So Jesus could not have been that Jesus taught the same message that Muhammad taught, which we do not see that at all.
Yeah, he claimed that several times, so all those would have to be taken out.
That Jesus was just a man, that he was not God in any way, shape, or form, which again completely kills most of the beginning of John, as we've already talked about. So there are massive changes that would have to be made to the Bible to bring it in line with what the Muslims are claiming. And there isn't a time period that could have been done.
There's another question there at the bottom. I like that one.
Sure.
Why was the book of Hebrews added, although it was anonymous? So
we did talk about that.
We did. There was enough that was in there. It was a close call. There was enough that was in there to make it look like it was solid scripture, that it was inspired. I don't know. I had to go back and I had to take a look at the details on why that was, but I remember when I'd studied it, it was a bit of a close call. Which Hebrews is one of my favorite books. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad that wasn't taken out.
Yeah. So yes, they would have ended up changing the entire, because you have all the prophecies in the Old Testament that's saying that Jesus is coming, that Jesus is coming, that Jesus is coming, this Messiah is coming, and then the entire Gospels, the fourfold Gospels, which was available to Muhammad at the time, which is what he refers to as the Injil. Those were available there, and all of that would have to have been changed. And as we have proven, that would have had to have happened long before Muhammad lived, and there really wasn't a time that could have happened without us obviously seeing the differences. He says, if you accept the Bible wasn't corrupted, that doesn't mean it's divine. Well, according to the Quran, it is divine. So are you defining the Quran then?
Yeah.
Sorry, misspoke on that one. Yes.
So that is a valid point, though, to say that just because something has not been textually corrupted over time, it doesn't mean it's divine. That is correct. There are other things that you could look at that would speak to it being inspired by God.
Okay, I just have a question for the Muslim. Do you know what gospel means? I just want to know that, because I think those words don't mean what you think they mean.
It means gospel, not gospel. I don't know. There's a lot of, I wish we could hit all these chat messages. There's a lot in here that are really good. I'm excited with seeing all of the chats that are coming up. I'm not sure if you wanted to take this direction or not, but there's some really good ones that are in here. There was one above. Could you click on this one, please? And I apologize if I don't hit everybody.
There's a lot here to
there
hit.
really is a lot. It's good stuff. And again, I'm just like scanning over this. So if I miss something that's maybe you think is better, it's not intentional. The author of the book of Hebrews is so knowledgeable about the Old Testament. That is true.
Yes.
Quoting a lot. In the past, God spoke to our forefathers through the prophets at many times in various ways, but in these last days, he has spoken to us through his Son, who he has appointed heir of all things, and through whom the universe was made. There is a place where someone has testified, God, what is man that you are mindful of him, or the son of man that you care for him? But you made everything under the author of Hebrews quotes the Old Testament, Psalms, all throughout. And the point of the book of Hebrews, the occasion was that there were Jewish Christians who were saying, I became a Christian, but I don't know. I'm going to go back to Judaism. He is giving a step-by-step approach to say why that's not the best idea. Jesus is better than angels. Jesus is better than Moses. And he goes on and on through that. And a lot of that would be, I would think, would be really good reading for a Muslim, because there's a lot of similarities in this context between somebody who would follow the law of Moses and follow the law of Muhammad. There's many similarities in there that you might look through. It's a fantastic book.
So we have, again, no. When Muhammad was speaking, Christians were there. The only thing that was referred to as the Gospels or the gospel would have been the fourfold gospel. That would have been Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah, it would have been very similar
Nothing.
to the Jews calling the law the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, and Deuteronomy. It's also referred to as the book of Moses or the Pentateuch. That was the law, and then you had the history books, you had the prophets that would have been after that. So you are talking about specific group of books.
So that's what Muhammad said. Okay, that's in line with the message I'm bringing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are really in contradiction to what the Quran teaches. So let me do a quick scroll up.
Especially John. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father
except
through me.
Yeah, there's just too much. And Jesus calling himself the same name that God gave to Moses during the burning of the bush. I am.
Mm-hmm.
He calls himself that, the great I am, over and over and over again. How much more apparent?
Yeah, and that wasn't just a literary thing. Because we say, well, is someone here named John? Oh, I am. It's not the same thing, because when Jesus said that, the Jews in that place were about to kill him because of blasphemy. He was declaring himself God. So,
and that's the only thing that would have caused that. Only identity that he could have claimed that would have caused instant execution.
If he would have just said, I am a prophet, then they would have compared what he said to what he did, and they would have taken they would have examined his life. But if he basically says, I am God, they said, okay, you're done.
You're done. We're going to kill you here.
Right.
And that happened multiple times.
Yeah.
So Jesus claimed to be God multiple times. I've already outlined that in a previous video long time ago, because it's nice to have that before. Yeah. I mean, that speaks to it right there.
Yep. Yeah. Ego eimi. That was the Greek word that he used for it. It's this I am. If you were just to say, just like in Spanish, is say estoy Juan Newton. I am. They don't say that. They say me llamo. But if you were to say I am Juan Newton, literally, you would say estoy. You don't have to say yo estoy. I mean I am, because it's already part of the verb. The same thing with Greek. The way that's written, the way that their language works is you don't have to say the I part in, but you're emphasizing it.
And this right here would have had to have been something that Muslims have to claim was corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
because in order for this to be a fact that Jesus said that he, before Abraham, he was, even if it's not claiming godhood, even if you take godhood out of that, the very fact that he has an eternal nature alongside Allah, according to their view of it, would give him partnership with Allah. And that is shirk. Plain and simple. So even if you took the divine aspect out of it, and I'm not saying you should in any way, shape, or form, it's very obvious what he was saying, you're still left with it contradicting the Quran.
Okay, this is a good question there. Did they speak Aramaic? And I think the answer is yes. They were multilingual. Aramaic was the common language of that region. Greek would have been the overriding language. Latin was around. Hebrew would have been the language they would have studied by, because that was written in the Bible. That would have been in their their liturgy when they were in the synagogue. So there were many languages they spoke. The reason why the New Testament was written in Greek is because that was the universal language that would go around to the entire region.
Again, just the concept that is, and this is something, again, I've covered in another video, the reason why Greek was such a widespread language at the time, so that the gospel could be easily spread throughout the known world, is amazing foresight.
Yeah, it's almost like God set it up, you know. Yeah, Alexander the Great go out and give everybody a common language. And then a couple centuries later, once everything is established, Jesus shows up on the scene.
And then you got Rome, who came through and made it a lot easier to travel, as well as
What
else are they known for doing? Well, building roads. So easy transportation between places allowed these letters and the Bible and the Gospels to spread really easily. And this is something that the Quran really failed on, as far as the early spread like that, because it wasn't written in a language that everyone could easily understand. It wasn't.
Right.
So.
Yep. Most of these are, I wouldn't say all of them because I haven't read them all, but there seem like great comments.
Oh, this is happening. This is happening.
It is popping.
So, probably throw this one up there.
Listen, Alexander polytheist. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but according to some Muslim scholars, he was actually Muslim, and he started the church in Rome, which...
What?
No, there's so many issues with that. There's so many issues. Yeah, he's accredited Muslim scholar. I'm not even going to use his name here because it's just so incredibly shameful that he said that.
That's not even close. Okay, so what was the? I understand the meaning of the point being made there was.
Question. I don't know if that was a question aimed at us.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I think it was a question aimed somewhere else, and it sounds like someone was being an issue and they were put in timeout. So scroll back through now. I don't know if some of these messages have been deleted because they don't actually delete from our side here.
Oh,
so we can actually still see them.
Does it mark if was deleted?
Doesn't, because we're using a different website to distribute this. It's actually Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So I haven't mentioned it. Please hit the like button, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. Share this with someone that actually needs to know if the Bible was corrupted or not.
That's fun.
Because I think we have beat this horse to death.
Alexander's horse.
After he founded the Church of Rome.
Rome wasn't even around then.
I know there are a million issues with that.
Yeah, the Etruscans that were there at that time. Jeez.
Million issues, and yeah, so many problems. And he was actually a Muslim the entire time. And although one of the criteria for a Muslim is that you put Muhammad as judge over everything and find in yourself no resistance.
It sounds like an entirely different show. You want to tackle that horse right now?
I already tackled that in a short. It's very obvious who the god of
There you go.
Islam
The name of his horse. Who wrote that down? Karen, I forget how you pronounce that name. That's the yes,
Congratulations.
whatever it is. That's the name of his horse.
You get the well done star for this one, the good star for this stream. Very well done.
You want to throw that up there as the last one, or are you done?
I got it up there right now.
No. I'm talking about that last comment.
This one right here. Sure.
Okay. What does it say? So you're saying that the church is from the Roman cult? No, not at all.
No. That was
you could say it was a Jewish cult because it's a break off from Judaism, right?
I think he's referring back to the whole Alexander the Great founded the Church of Rome, but
no,
that never happened. That's utter foolishness.
It's like you might as well say
Kim
Kim Il Jung is Jesus's mother. I mean, it does not make any sense whatsoever.
Now, if you're saying that Christianity is Roman cult, no, that wouldn't be a accurate statement. That would almost be saying that
it's like it's a cult of America. No, because Christianity preceded America. Christianity preceded the Roman adoption of Christianity. So started off with as Jews, and then expanded to Gentiles after that through Paul and others. And so,
in case you didn't know it, Jesus was a Jew. Just to let you know.
Yes.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yep. Entirely.
So, yeah, you could look at it as being Christianity was obviously, by my account, I'd say that Christianity is what Judaism was intended to become from the very beginning. It's
Correct.
Very obvious that the prophets were all pointing to Jesus coming, this unusual one coming.
Yeah.
This one that isn't like any others coming, and that's what it is. So,
okay.
So I think this was follow-up to that one there. So
I know for a fact that Judaism has pagan origins.
no.
Okay. I don't know about that. Actually, there is even a whole website hosted by Catholics. They can say whatever they want. It's not.
It's irrelevant.
So
There
I
is-
guess you could say that Judaism did have pagan origins by saying that Abraham was a polytheist.
Started off as polytheist, yeah.
Yes, and then God spoke to him, and then he followed him, and it was just one God for him from there on out. But there is nothing within Judaism. Boy, this would be an entire thing itself. And the guy who does what's it, IP, Internet Philosophy. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He does an entire section on this, and it's really good. So, you hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. Worship your Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The Shema that was given in synagogues. No,
it's very obvious that was not built off of a pagan cult. You would have to look, although if you look at Islam, it's very obviously built off a pagan cult. In fact, it took a lot of the traditions that were common to pagans and incorporated them. Look at the Kaaba, look at Hajj, look at all those aspects. Those are all found within pagan beliefs of the time that Muhammad was.
Now you got to be careful on that one though, because you could also say the same with like circumcision. Circumcision was a practice that was around the Near East, practices in other places. There often God will take something that was pagan and turn it to something that's holy. And you can even see that in church tradition too, where things were turned around. God reclaiming things that were corrupted.
Yeah, so, but in the cases that I'm referring to, those are now key tenets of the faith.
Okay.
Were basically just rebranded.
Okay.
Paganism. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this. We're going to go ahead and wrap on up. Yep, there you go.
Thank you. I was looking for that. Not internet, but inspiring philosophy. Yeah, I think he did a section on that, if I remember. Just the guy's channel is fantastic.
So,
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were
look,
closing, and
we're
here
going to
I
go ahead and
jump in.
close. We're going to go ahead and end in prayer, just like we've ended all the other ones. Thank you very much for John Newton joining me. We will be doing
It's a
another
pleasure.
book review with him at the end of next month. We'll be doing that. So I look forward to joining you for that one. But like I said, let's go ahead and end in prayer. Lord of heaven and earth, we come before you. We thank you for the opportunity to dive into your word, for the opportunity to be able to compare and see any sort of variants that are out there and be able to be just have an assurance that this is your word, and to be able to question and investigate it without fear of any sort of retribution. I pray that your hand will be upon everyone who has watched this, that you open their eyes and open their heart. And I pray that for those who we normally pray for, I lift up Jessica, that you guide her in her search for you. I pray that you bless friend B, that you guide him and his family, that you bless his family and help him with the issues that he is dealing with. I pray for friend V in his desire to see your face. And we just thank you for this time with you. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray, the name above all names. Amen.
Amen.